Good evening, and welcome to another edition of The Living of These Days, the Universal Human Rights Edition. 75 years ago, beginning today, the United States detonated 2 nuclear weapons over Japan. Japanese cities of Hiroshima on August 6th and on August 9th, Nagasaki. The 2 bombings killed between 129,000 and 226,000 people, most of whom were civilians, and remain the only use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict. The most powerful weapon to ever be used against other human beings was detonated by the United States 75 years ago today. To say never again is the understatement of human history. So, with the backdrop of Max Richter's Blue Notebooks, the song that kept coming to me again and again is this On the Nature of Daylight. And I thought, 3 years later in 1948, the United Nations then drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it was a milestone document following World War II, drafted by representatives of different legal and cultural backgrounds from all the regions of the world. The declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris, 10 December 1948, as a common standard of achievements for all peoples to be universally protected. And it has been translated in over 500 languages. So I felt, taking this time for the living of these days, and on this day, 75 years later, I kept coming back again and again to this declaration. So I thought that I would read the declaration in whole, because on this anniversary, these words of the declaration profoundly speak to our world today, let alone the world coming out of the Second World War and the destruction of war, the terror of war. And so taking this time now with a backdrop, I thought I'd read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a meditation on how we should exist for our fellow human beings. Preamble. Whereas recognition of the inherent dignity of the equal and unalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of humankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. Whereas it is essential, if humanity is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by rule of law. Whereas it is essential to promote the development of friendly relationships between nations. Whereas the peoples of the United Nations have in the Charter reaffirmed their faith in the fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, and in the equal rights of men and women, and have determined to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. Whereas member states have pledged themselves to achieve, in cooperation with the United Nations, to the promotion of universal respect for the observance of the human rights and fundamental freedoms, whereas a common understanding of these rights and freedoms is of the greatest importance for the full realization of this pledge. Now, therefore, the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to the end that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect of these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of the member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of humanity, brotherhood, and sisterhood. Article 2. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Article 3. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of person. Article 4. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Article 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or a degrading treatment or punishment. Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Article 7. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Article 8. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent and national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him or her by the Constitution or by law. Article 9. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. Article 10. Everyone is entitled to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his or her rights and obligations and of any criminal charge against him or her. Article 11. Everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty according to law in a public trial at which he or she has had all the guarantees necessary for his or her defense. No one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed, nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. Article 12. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his or her privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his or her honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Article 13. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his or her own, and to return to his or her country. Article 14. Everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions generally arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Article 15. Everyone has the right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his or her nationality, nor denied the right to change his or her nationality. Article 16. Men and women of full age without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and to be found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage during the marriage and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Article 17. Everyone has the right to own property, alone as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his or her property. Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom of religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his or her religion on belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Article 20. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Article 21. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his or her country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right to equal access to public service in his or her country. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. Article 22. Everyone as a member of society has the right to social security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation, and in accordance with the organization and resources of each state of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his or her dignity and the free development of his or her personality. Article 23. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. Everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work. Everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself or herself, his or her family, an existence worthy of human dignity, and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests. Article 24. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. Article 25. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself or herself and his or her family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his or her control. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance, but add fatherhood. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. Article 26. Everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. Parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. Article 27. Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. Everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and the material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he or she is the author. Article 28. Everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and the freedoms set forth in this declaration may be fully realized. Article 29. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his or her personality is possible. In the exercise of his or her rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and the freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society. These rights and freedoms may in no cause be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. And finally, Article 30. Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying to any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. Let us pray for a society that respects the dignity of every human being. And on this 75th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the destruction of war and atomic bombs, killing hundreds of thousands of people, let us be so determined to uphold such freedoms in this declaration set forth in 1948 by the United Nations of the world. Let us contemplate our participation in such a declaration. Peace.